down, resigning, that we needed also to address some of the morality in the country that people are unhappy about and in leadership of the country. And so that was the motivation for us. And the history that we've seen over many years gone by, that sometimes the direction taken cannot be approved by everybody. And there's a strong sentiment that the direction that's been taken in the leadership in the country is not for the best of the nation, for our constituencies, or for the people of South Africa.
Thank you. There was a question raised about whether we had raised these matters with the President when we met in December. Our meeting in December was specifically to deal with the matter of the changes at the Finance Ministry. It was not dealing with anything much wider than that. And there was not even a thought of asking the President to resign or step down. But and I think that we need to appreciate that this is not an easy call to make. We could feel and sense the pain also in the ANC delegation, because they are wrestling with the same issues. And I think that they will continue to be wrestling with these issues across the country. And we recognize that much of our own congregations are also in the membership of the ANC. So the pain is felt across the board. And this is about saying, how can the country heal and go beyond the current challenges and morass? And therefore, it is not about throwing away what's good about what has been achieved, but it is about saying there comes a point at which it is better to change gear. And I think that's what the religious leaders are saying. And I should add that from the point of view of the Council of Churches, I as General Secretary have been receiving very, very urgent calls from heads of member churches to make this call, and we have not been able to come to a point that can say that until now, because we need a much broader consultation. We will be meeting again next week to review and take stock, so that the religious leaders and the church leaders can continue to guide what we do in their name.
Okay, I'll just give the ones that have been started. Okay. I'm going to give a first, and then you follow, and Nicholas, you can follow. You start.
Angela Blwana from SABC Radio News. Bishop, you said that in the meeting you were disappointed that the Deputy President and the President were not there, and they said that if you wanted a meeting that includes them, maybe you're going to have to go another time, maybe next week. Have you decided whether you are up for it? You're going to wait and then go next week, or have you decided maybe not?
Okay, and then you can follow.
Marijke Vermaak from Jacaranda FM. You touched on it now, so saying that the ANC struggles with these same kind of things. I was going to ask, what was the reaction when you went to the leadership and you told them this? I mean, we're looking at the reaction in the media over the last few days, and it hasn't been very welcoming. Other people coming out suggesting the same thing, and we're hearing from some of the ANC leadership that, you know, people aren't like dangerous territory here. So what was their reaction to you guys coming to them and saying this?
Nicholas Bauer from E-News Channel Africa. Besides the response from the ANC, what is your next move in terms of liaising with your congregants and your followers? Are you going to, A, call on them to join the civil action that was launched outside the Constitutional Court this week? And along with that, are you going to be discussing this in your gatherings on Fridays and Saturdays when you meet with your congregants, perhaps even calling on them to pray for the President to heed this call that you're making, to step down?
All right. I have one already. Thanks. My name is Moloko Mloto. I'm a journalist at Power FM. the president, in as much as that you want him to resign, in fact, he's busy executing his duties as number one. He's in Port Elizabeth now. What do you think, the fact that, given that the ANC has said that they're not going to recall him, his stay in office, how is that harming, I don't know, the society? What are the implications of him remaining in that high office?
I think you can respond to the questions.
Just the question that you raised at the beginning about whether we're meeting next week or not. I think the point that was being made was it was a choice of whether they should take our urgent request for a meeting, entertain that now, or say it will wait for a scheduling opening in the everyday business of government, which is where the president, the deputy president, and the Speaker of the Assembly would be. So that's why it was easier for those who are working at Lutuli House to take the leadership in responding to our immediate call, so that they can take our message. So we expect that they will engage amongst themselves about what we said, since they were not the full bench of the national officials. And the key thing is the need to have a direct conversation with the president himself, and that we have made those requests and will continue to do that, because obviously, ultimately, if you're talking about him resigning, it has a decision that he has to take. And you have heard the ANC say, if they were to ask him to do that, they would be splitting their own organization. So it's not really about the ANC even, it's about the president choosing on his own volition that this is actually better for the country than otherwise.
I think short term too, we will engage with the president if we can on a one-on-one basis and discussions with him. And I think secondly that we will brief our constituencies and our churches and organizations, institutions about the way forward a little bit, and what we feel came out of the meeting today.
May I add something?
Yes.
Earlier on this week, there was a statement that came from the National Religious Leaders Council and the South African Council of Churches in the lead up to this meeting, in which we publicly stated the fact that the president has lost the moral legitimacy to govern the country. And I think that's really, you know, what this has been about. And what's important is that to realize that as the National Religious Leaders Council and the South African Council of Churches, we are speaking on behalf of the widest possible spectrum of faith communities in South Africa, which represents easily, if not more, upwards of 80% of this country. And so we are making this call and making these statements as a result of what all of the churches and various religious organizations are hearing from their constituents. And this was conveyed very clearly to the ANC, that what we say is in the name of the people that we represent. These are not our personal opinions alone. They represent the views of South Africans. And that's why we felt it our duty before God to go and share this, because this is really for the good of the country. And the call for the resignation of the president it's a plea to the president to put the good of the country before anything else.
You will appreciate that the civil society and other groupings, whether it's business or whatever, they've got a right of their own to make their own calls. So we're not representing all of them. And so to ask whether we represent them, no, we don't. We don't represent them. They've got a right to speak for themselves. As a religious community, you'll also appreciate that we need to ask the nation to rally around and not begin actions that are divisive, which may lead to strife and which may lead to destruction and loss of life. Was saying in this particular instance, let us steer away from politicking, but instead call for actions that will assist the nation going forward. That is a call we are making, and we hope that there will be support from all sectors of society, including all political persuasion and religious, etc., etc., etc. And our first prize. That's why we phrase it as saying, the president must resign, so that the president is not seen as pushed. We do not know what struggles, because we have not met him. We do not know what he is struggling with. And that's why we made a choice of saying the ANC leadership must assist the president, so that there will be no sectors of society which feel that, he's been pushed and all that. What will happen then after that response will depend on what that response is and how we engage going forward, preferable following constitutional processes that are available to the nation.
Thank you, leaders. I think we'll take 3 more, then we're going to close it, if it's okay.
What is the question? Sorry.
About what was the reaction to you guys going and saying to them, you want leadership to assist with the president stepping down?
We must express here that from the representation of the leadership that was there, we were welcomed in a warm way, and there was, we believe, there was honest engagement. The expression that it's not as easy as that, because it's a hurting journey, it's a difficult journey, it's a costly journey. So they were not able then to respond directly, but they acknowledged they've heard our call, and we have articulated that call very clearly and motivated it, and they received it. They have their own processes of engaging, because they cannot speak, because the African National Congress is an organization. They cannot just stand up and respond to us, and we acknowledge that, and we're hopeful, and we persuaded them that they will continue with the process of engagement as honestly as they indicated in our conversation today. What's the question?
Well, I mean, that is the whole point. There would have been no expectation that he wouldn't be getting on with the business of his office today, because we're in the office to make a request. They didn't know what we're coming there for. And so we're not expecting a sudden close of business. What we're saying is we would like him to think about the importance of this recommendation for the country, as well as for the African National Congress to assist him in that process. We raised a number of things that we think they might be worth for them to look and consider. They've heard those things. And so what they said is that they will then put this as part of their own reflection as they're going forward. So I don't think there was an expectation that he would suddenly stop today because we're there. I don't think so.
Even if he writes the letter to resign, that letter will be sent to the appropriate offices, and then there'll be processes. So he cannot just leave. There will have to be processes on what do we do and what do we put in place. The reason we're asking for the resignation, if that's what you're asking, is that we feel at the moment there is loss in public confidence, and also he, as a representative, not as a person, this is not an attack on the person, that we must be very clear, but as a representative of political leadership of the country, he is losing the moral integrity to lead. So that's the implication which we have articulated.
Sorry, returning to this issue. I don't believe you responded to the question whether or not you'll be taking this call to your congregants, maybe putting in your sermons to pray for the president to heed your call to, as you say, do the honourable thing and resign. Are you going to be doing that?
That's up to each church.
It will be up to each church, but I think to act faithfully, you engage and you listen to the response and not try to do things that will make them want to not to follow our counsel. So we're engaging and hoping to work together with them, and we're hoping that they are going to respond positively. But to go out and make inciting statements, I don't think it will be a responsible thing. So at the moment, we will wait for the response and then communicate that to the rest of the religious communities, and whatever action will follow, we'll communicate that as this body, but also as different denominations and faith communities.
Just going to take one more, then we're going to close it.
Hi.
We're going to start, just so you start, and then you follow, then that will be, we'll take three more, then we're done.
My name is Tabiso Tagadi from Independent Newspapers. I just want to ask, perhaps if the question was asked earlier, just to add on it, on how, the ANC Secretary General has previously expressed disdain towards those outside the ANC who have come forward and made calls for the ANC, for the president to be recalled. In fact, he went in as far as suggesting that such bodies outside the ANC, if they go into that terrain, they are venturing into the political terrain, and they will be treated as such in the way that they have treated the opposition. Are you perhaps concerned by that? Did that particular issue arise in your meetings with the officials? The second question is that I know that amongst some of you, there has been expressed support for the president previously. Do you now, given the stance you have adopted, regret having ever offered your support to the president as a moral leader of this country? Thank you.
Next one.
Thank you. It's Govind again from Eyewitness News. I just would like to get some clarity about where this call for the president to resign came from. I know Chief Rabbi Goldstein spoke about the constituencies getting in touch with you. And I just wanted to find out whether it's the same for all religious groups, whether there have been churches that have called on the Council of Churches to call for the president to step down, and how widespread this call has been from the local structures. And then second question, if I could ask Mr. Frank Chikane, sir, I know you were in the government a while back before the former president was recalled. It's no easy way to ask this question, sir. I just would like to find out whether you've been surprised by the fact that the president remains in office following the recent developments.
Should I go ahead? Okay. Good afternoon again, Alden again from the SABC. I understand you say that in December, that meeting with the president, you didn't even think about whether he should resign or not. But considering what has been spoken here, it seems as though that this has been a sentiment that has been with the leadership for some time now. Do you believe that it was a missed opportunity during December when you had that meeting with the president to ask him to step down? The second question is, what do you say to criticism that here you have religious leaders who are trying to push for a regime change? And the final question is, we know that the elections are coming up, and political leaders, of course, will be going to different churches and so forth to address congregants. What would your message be to your different members, church members, in terms of allowing the president to speak, and whether some of those church leaders, pastors, will be at events of the ANC?
Just one more here.
Hello, I'm Claudia Malevich from Netwerk 24. I just wanted to ask specifically, Bishop Siwa, for you guys from the SACC per se, when you sent out the statement on Friday with regards to the Constitutional Court's judgment, you did say you had like a minimum demands that you basically put to the president. And I just wanted to find out, one of the demands was basically that the president should change his tune and that he should like really apologize to the citizens of our country. At that stage, you said there were calls from within the SACC to ask him to step down, but you're not going to do it immediately. Did the president's apology actually change something? Did you actually feel this is heartfelt? Did you think he really changed his tune?
Okay. The the support to a democratically elected government, because the present government is democratically elected. So, and the stance of the South African Council of Churches is that we will have the critical engagement with the democratically elected government. So we're not in opposition to government. So whilst there is that critical engagement and support, it doesn't mean that it's a blanket support to everything that happens. So we'll respond to things as they come up. It becomes necessary to go and engage rather than go and speak publicly when there is an opportunity for an engagement. And yes, the call is made after a long process of engagement, engaging the various church leaders and religious leaders. But we cannot say all, because you know that the religious landscape in South Africa is very wide. So we say most major religious communities were consulted, and we are together in this. We have made it very clear, and the General Secretary will speak to that, that we have not interpreted the apology of the President as an apology to the issues that were raised. For instance, he says that he apologizes for the frustration and the confusion that has been caused. We were not confused from the beginning, so we cannot accept his apology because we were not confused. He is apologizing to those who are confused. We are not confused. So we had no apology to accept. For us, he has not made any apology as we stand here.
I think the issue of an outside voice and what was brought up on the basis of the role of the church in politics, I think many years ago, when you spoke about apartheid in our constituency those days, over 30 years ago, people said, why are you getting involved in politics? Well, apartheid wasn't political, it was a moral issue. And I think that whoever is the president at the time in our country and the leadership in our country, we do have a prophetic role to play in having a voice to them and to the nation, not arrogantly saying we're speaking to the whole nation, but to speak to our constituencies and all those that will listen through the platforms that we have. And so I think it's important that we realize that there is a prophetic mantle on church leadership and religious leaders to express what they believe is the right thing to express at that time. And so I think that talking about outside voices and everything, I just think, no, what's happened over the period of time in my own personal life and constituency, it'll be more so, a little bit different in some of the SAC leadership, but was that as you go along, you begin to see things that you need to change and things that need to be dealt with. But I think our role of helping anybody in government, whether they're the president or whether whatever level they are, is the role of a church without being politically motivated, but morally obligated.
And then would they reach the...
Thank you.
Yes.
No, we can hear you. You can hear me. Okay, that's good. That's good. Firstly, let me just say, I think the person who asked this question just wants to hear my voice, but the point is that the matters that I dealt with and now are totally different and unrelated, and so I don't think we should bring an equation to equate them. I just want to say that as we deliberated with the religious leaders, it has been a very painful process and difficult. Religious leaders don't easily make decisions like this. It's not like it's done it's not a matter of politics. And the leadership we met in the ANC said they are hurting. themselves. They're going through a hurt. The nation is hurting. The religious leaders are hurting. Everybody is hurting in this country. We're going through a very difficult moment. And so the request, it's really based on what is good for the people of South Africa, and avoid any form of events that may be cost people's lives, and we don't want that. We don't want anybody to be hurt, and we don't want anybody to go to the streets and be hurt. And I think it's more of the president who could assist us to deal with this matter. I just want to, President, to correct this matter. You see, our colleague here used the word regime change. And if we don't deal with it, it might actually go as being said here. We are not about regime change. That's not what we are talking about. And as asking a president to resign, it's not a regime change. And so please move away from that, because it just raises issues that are not relevant at all. And then it equates all this with what's happening in other countries, which we don't want to be party to. What we are saying is what the plea of the religious leaders is that the president should assist us to end this pain so that we can work towards the South Africa we really pray for.
I might just add that actually regime change is what happened in 1994. That was a different regime coming in. There have been changes of presidents. There was no regime change when President Mbeki stepped down. That was not regime change, because it's the same regime, it's the same government, same African National Congress. That's not a regime change. And so for President Zuma to step aside is not and cannot be perceived as a regime change. I think it must be very clear that that's really what we're talking about. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm told my leaders, you have to bear with me. I'm told there are a couple of questions that I still need to take, so bear with me. And then that will be it. I can see my president saying that it's enough. Just two questions and then that's it.
All right. Muluku Mloto again from Power FM. I think indications are clear that the president is not willing to resign and the ANC is not willing to recall him. There are people, and I would quote Mr. Prince Mashele, who was speaking after the so-called members of civil society met at the Constitution Hill, suggesting that the ballot is not the only process of removing a president, in fact saying that South Africans should take to the street, of course peacefully. Now, I want to ask you as church leaders, if a call to march to remove against the president grows, will you as religious leaders encourage your congregants to join that march? Will you be part of that march, peaceful march?
I'd like to answer that question. This is the final round. Let's take the questions.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, just the two questions that weren't answered earlier on. The meeting that you had with the president, was it not a missed opportunity, considering as I perceive it, that it's not the first time that you have an issue with the leadership of the president? And then the other one was that because we're heading into the municipal elections, there'll be a lot of canvassing for votes and obviously so forth. And political leaders obviously use churches as well. Would you make a call to your constituency and say that do not allow the president to speak because we want him to step down?
Thank you. I'll take those two questions. I'll start with the last one. That the Bishop Siwa, as president of the SACC, said earlier that when you deal as an organized structure of religious faith communities dealing with a democratically elected government. You deal with that government openly in good faith on a regular basis. I mean, just put it this way. All of us are partners in government, for example, with Home Affairs through marriage. We're marriage officers. That means we are part of the state in that sense. We support the state. We are there to do prayers at the inauguration of presidents. We were chaplains in the military and the police. This doesn't happen without our authorization as religious leaders. So it's not as though we're dealing here with an illegitimate government. And therefore, that meeting was not just once off. It's an ongoing process. When they've got issues, we raise it with them. So we cannot therefore say we should have thought about this at the time we meet, because we meet on other occasions as well. It is an ongoing process. There will always be reason to meet with the government. That's one thing to say. It was not and could not be a missed opportunity because there was no desire, intention, or reason to ask the president to resign when we went to talk to the president about the minister Nhlanhla Nene. So I would say definitely no, it was not a missed opportunity. There's no regret about that. The question about what we will be saying to our congregations, one needs to recognize, and I think it's an important thing to recognize, that the South African Council of Churches is actually a fellowship of affiliated churches. And not all churches in South Africa are affiliated with the SACC, nor is it a statutory organization. It is a voluntary association of those churches that are members of the council in all provinces of the country. And if it were a company, I like to say, the churches are the shareholders. And each of the shareholders in this case would then make their own decisions about what they're saying to their congregations. We take the cue to the extent that they instruct the organized structure, the collective, to make a decision. And that's also the reason why we're having a special meeting next week to make sure that we report back on this meeting with the ANC and take a further instruction on what seems appropriate to say or do. So there is a sense in which the SACC as an organized structure is to be responsive to the demands and the dictates of its members more than it is dictating to them. And I'm sure that applies also to the National Religious Council.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. I think we have covered most of the questions. I would like to release my leaders and release you guys. And also I've consulted with them. I don't think they will do one-on-one because then you don't want to bring another questions that confuses the whole issue that was said. So out of respect, I think all the questions has been answered. You can file those stories and then just let them go home and rest. You will appreciate the it's very difficult time that the nation is going through, and I think the leaders has given you enough time. Thank you so much again for coming. We appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you, my leaders. Thank you.